Question. If it were possible to learn a superpower, would you want to learn it? And what if that superpower was the ability to move mountains? And by mountains, I mean the seemingly insurmountable obstacles standing in the way of your life. I know all of us have places where we feel stuck, right? Like there's something that's just in our way that we can't seem to get past. By the way, I'm Kyle, I'm a pastor. This is Crossroads Church. What does that mean? It means I believe you were born for adventure, and we exist here to guide and equip you for that adventure. No matter what your thoughts are on church or on God or any of that, I'm just pumped that you're with us today. So if you want to move mountains, if you said, yes, I'd like the superpower, Kyle, that'd be great. Great news. Jesus promised that through him, you can. Let me say this promise, which I'm about to show you in just a second, and all the promises of Jesus, they're not reserved for the people who have it all together and do all the right stuff all the time. The only criteria to having any promise of Jesus is having an open mind and an open heart towards God. That's it. If that's you today, I believe today is going to help you move forward past the mountain standing in your path. Now here's the promise, the actual words from Jesus. This is Mark 11, verse 23. Jesus said, "For assuredly, I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will be done, he will have whatever he says. Therefore I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them and you will have them." That's an amazing promise, right? I mean, it's incredible. I think it's one of the most exciting things Jesus ever said. Here's the problem. It's also one of the misunderstood. Most misunderstood. So let's start with some important context to get towards understanding. First, Jesus didn't say these words in a sterile classroom. He was walking outside. He said it on a specific day, which I find very fascinating. It was on the Tuesday of the week he was crucified, which happened on Friday, just 3 days later. And if you understand exactly where Jesus was when he said this, the story gets immediately more interesting. See, he was walking from a town called Bethany, which is just on the backside of a mountain just outside of Jerusalem over here. He was walking up the mountain and standing on the crest of the hill. Now I want you to read this with me again. He said, "For assuredly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain." Now Jesus didn't just say any mountain. He didn't say a mountain. He said this mountain. And this moment right here is where we get off track. See, we apply this to any situation, any problem in our life, but Jesus said this mountain. So which mountain was he talking about? Well, generally when someone's speaking and they say this, they're pointing, right? Like if I walked in the donut store and the person said, "Which donut do you want?" And I said, "I would like this donut." I would be a very unhelpful and frustrating person, right? Instead, I would say, "No, I want this donut." And I'd be pointing at something. And see, I don't think Jesus is being frustrating here. I think from that very spot right here, he was pointing at a specific mountain. Why? Because there's one that stands out above all the rest from that location. It's the only mountain in the world not made by God, the most unique mountain in the entire world. It was actually built by the man who had tried to kill Jesus since he was born, a guy named King Herod. Who's King Herod? He's the original Lord Vader. That's what you need to know. And this mountain was basically his Death Star. He had built it as a fortress and it stood tall over everything. Get this. Jesus had seen this mountain since he was born. Because not only can you see it from the spot just outside of Jerusalem, the city where he died, you can also see it from Bethlehem, the city where he was born. And so quite literally, this mountain had loomed over his entire life. I wonder, do you have a mountain like that? Is there an obstacle that's always been in your way for as long as you can remember? Well, that's what this mountain was to Jesus. That's important because Jesus here, he's not saying you can rearrange creation to your liking. Like you can literally just say, "Hey mountain, I would like you to go over here into the sea and become an island. We'd make another Hawaii or something." No. By the way, if this is what he was saying, I would move the Austrian Alps outside of Salzburg to my backyard. It would be fantastic. That's not what he's saying though. He's saying the feared obstacles, the ones that have loomed tall and imposing over your entire life, maybe over generations before you, those are the mountains that can move. And here's the thing. I don't know if you've tried this, but I have. And I have to be honest. When I say to these mountains, "Move!" sometimes they don't. Money has been a thing in my life for a while. And back in my earlier 20s, I had a house for sale. I was double mortgages. I had a house. I put it for sale. I bought another house before this one sold. And immediately I realized I was in hot water because double mortgage payments, and I didn't have double the money that I used to have. And so I had a problem. It was a mountain looming over my life. And I said, move, mountain. God, sell my house. Today, God. Many days I went, God, today, God, sell my house. Move. The mountain didn't move. It took almost a year to sell that house. Drained my bank account. It's awful. It's hard. We've seen this at Crossroads. When we go to do work around the world, oftentimes we do work in places where there's a mountain that's loomed large over people's entire lives, over generations. There's been poverty and there's been pain. We say, move, mountain. And the mountain doesn't seem to get up and move. I went to a refugee camp recently on the border between Mexico and the U.S. It was an awful place. 2,000 people living in total poverty, no food, no sanitation. It was awful. I literally watched families not having food, kids hungry, laying on the ground. I said, God, send food. These people are hungry. And no bread came out of the sky. I wonder about you. Have you ever had a mountain like this and you've said, God, move it? And it didn't. I've seen people's faith break apart on these rocks. I've seen guilt set in. Maybe I did something wrong. I prayed for healing. I said the thing that he said, and the person didn't get healed. I asked for a miracle, and then I got nothing. I set out to change the pattern of my life that's been broken since the beginning, but the mountain stayed blocking my path. Now, this is what I call one of the make or break moments in the Bible. Literally, it can make you walk away from God, or it can be the key to breakthrough in your life. The stakes in this one couldn't be bigger. I think understanding holds the key to breakthrough, and misunderstanding can be the thing that causes you to one day just deconstruct it all and walk away. Now, what is clear here is that Jesus made a promise. He said the mountain can move. The question is how? And that's the question that we're going to spend the entire rest of our time together answering. I think what you'll find incredibly refreshing and life-giving. There are two popular views on how mountains move. The first is the agnostic view. Basically says, mountains don't move. You just live life, you die. It's hard sometimes. Get over it. And then there's the religious view. It says that mountains move when you have enough faith. And here I'm using religion in a negative sense. It's like the self-righteously religious person, the person who believes that they're spiritually superior because they've got the right smarts and the correct set of beliefs, all that stuff. Now, people who hold on to the religious view don't hold on to faith. See, the core of the religious view says that complete faith is complete intellectual agreement. It says when you intellectually agree to the right set of beliefs, God gives you salvation and power, like to move mountains, in return, like a contractor, a reward. And in this view, your faith is only as strong as you are certain of the right beliefs. The more you're certain, the more faith you have. The more faith you have, the more the mountains will just kind of poof. The image I get here is like Magneto and metal, just like grabbing the metal and pick it up and put it over here. It's like that. So is your mountain cancer? The idea is we'll just have enough faith and poof, you'll be healed. Is the mountain you're facing debt? We'd say just have enough faith and poof, a check will magically come in the mail. Is the mountain mental health? Just have enough faith and poof, one day you'll wake up without depression. Now, the enemy of faith in this view is doubt, because doubt decreases certainty. Therefore, doubt's evil, which means you should shun it and avoid it at all costs, because if salvation hinges on certainty over doubt, well, it'd be wildly dangerous to even consider something new. You could let doubt in. And here I want to be completely clear. The religious view of faith as certainty is incredibly destructive and incredibly dangerous. Never considering a new viewpoint, never considering that maybe you're wrong. That's not virtuous. It's prideful. See, doubt isn't the enemy of faith. I think it's an essential companion. If you want to know more about that, you can actually check out an episode we did just a while back called Said No One Ever. But I want to make this point. Holding the religious view leads to delusion, absolute delusion. The biggest delusion is that you're God. See, it's all on you. If you just make yourself certain enough that the mountain will move, and it will, that actually requires zero dependence on God. It's all about you and you alone. And the Bible says that an idol is anything that takes the place of God in your life. And a major role that God's supposed to play is your source of power. But if you get your power from your own certainty, then your certainty is an idol. You're not getting power from God. You're getting power from what you think about God. That's different. It's different. Now, if you choose the religious view and you're smart enough to know that you're not God, the only other possible outcome, I think, is that you will eventually lose your faith. You'll deconstruct it at some point, and you'll walk away from the whole thing. Because sometime you'll have a moment in your life where there's a mountain and you'll say move, and it won't. And it'll lead to guilt and shame and anger. You just feel like you just don't have what it takes, or God's not for you, or he's not there. You just walk away. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's a friend of yours. I know many people who've gone through this. People who've been told that the continued pain in their life, it would have vanished if they just had enough faith, enough certainty. You're only in that wheelchair because your faith isn't strong enough to stand. I've heard that said to people. I know people who've had spouses suffering from cancer, and they were told if they just had enough faith, if they were certain that their spouse would be healed, if they were certain that they could command the cancer away, if they were certain enough that the cancer would have vanished. But it didn't. And now they're left to shoulder the weight of feeling like they failed. Listen, if this is you, I'm sorry. That should have never been said to you, and it's not true. It's not. That kind of certainty is not what Jesus was talking about here. What faith is meant to be is so much better. And that's what we're going to dig into next. And let me be clear, sometimes the mountains do just move. That's called a miracle, and I've seen them happen. But they're called miracles for a reason, because they don't happen all the time. We'll get back to that in just a minute, but first, two quick things. One, if I can help you in any way, I would love to. Just email me at kyle.ranson@crossroads.net. Two, one of the places that you may feel stuck in your life, a mountain in your way, might be finances, like I mentioned earlier. If that's true, I would invite you to do something you've probably never done before, called giving. And let me just say off the bat, I realize how self-serving that sounds for a church to offer to help you with giving. And so we've designed a way to take some of that out for you and eliminate some of the risk. It's called our 90-day tithe test, and it works like this. You try giving for 90 days, and if at the end of those 90 days, you don't feel and sense more of God's power in your life, you're not feeling that mountain move, we'll give you all your money back. No questions asked. A Crossroads is supported by a community of generous givers from around the country, people like Christine.
Back in November 2019, I was church hopping. I went to a lot of churches. I felt like I didn't belong, and threw my hands up in the air and said, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. So I'm sitting at my kitchen table, and I had this deep longing, desire to be back in community. We're in the middle of a pandemic. What am I gonna do? I can't go anywhere. Church is closed. I can't even go see my family members. What am I gonna do? I'm on Facebook, and a Crossroads church ad came up. It was sponsored. So I clicked on the message that was on the Facebook page, and I listened to it, and I'm like, oh wow, this is pretty neat. This is pretty cool. I think it was in July of 2020 where I kind of wanted to have a little bit more, to be more in community. As I explored, I was really mesmerized just by the work of what Crossroads was doing, that the church members were giving and where that money was going. I loved seeing that Masters of Disaster, went to Texas to help flooding victims. Puerto Rico to capture messages when Crossroads paid medical debt. I started giving financially. It's just so, it really makes me feel like I'm a part of the community, even though it's online. It's fantastic, and I don't know how else to explain it, but with Thanksgiving.
I love that story. Notice she never said she was certain. She just stepped out in faith. Now there's one final nail in the coffin of this idea of certainty, faith, that we have to talk about. It's this. This idea of faith as intellectual certainty actually fails the very test of intellect. I don't know if you knew this, but there are 45,000 different denominations of churches in the world, and there's actually 2.4 being born every single day, which means there are 45,000 different belief systems to pick from, which means your odds of picking the right belief system are very, very low. Now, what most people do is they just kind of inherit a belief system from their family. And if that's not you, if you're like, no, I don't believe what my family believes, you're probably going to do what the other group of people do, which is form a new one with your friends. You're going to read books about theology, different stuff, have great conversations, and then choose what you believe. But again, just consider, there are 45,000 different systems of belief. Your odds of picking the right one are extremely low. In fact, you have a 99.998% chance of picking wrong. By the way, this assumes that one of them is actually right. Now see, faith is not certainty. It's not. Faith is risking relationship. And when you have that kind of faith, mountains move. How? I actually met an interesting person, an unexpected place, who unpacked this for me. I took a trip to the US-Mexican border a few weeks ago, just to view the situation down there, which is crazy. You know, there's people all over in hurt and in need. And when you go down there, everyone says the same thing. They just say it's incredibly complex. There's no easy solutions in sight. It's just incredibly complex, which is another way of saying it's insurmountable. It's a mountain if I've ever seen one. But get this, in the middle of this place, facing this insurmountable mountain, I found a 4-foot, 10-inch giant who's moving it. Her name is Pastor Margarita Martinez, and her husband Hugo pastor a tiny 50-person church in Alamo, Texas. And they're doing amazing work. They're housing 45 unaccompanied minors, feeding them every day, clothing them. They're helping people with their immigration cases. They're feeding hungry people all over. They're moving mountains. And I got to have lunch with pastors, which was amazing. I imagine it was like, kind of like what it would have been like having lunch with someone like Mother Teresa. Just amazing. And so I asked Pastor Margarita, I said, there's this verse, I'm sure you know it, the one where Jesus says, if you have faith, you can move mountains. I said, the mountain you're trying to move, of helping all of these thousands and thousands of people, of generations after generation of poverty and neglect, have you ever asked Jesus to just, move it? And she looked at me thoughtfully for a while, and she said, when I ask Jesus to move mountains, do you know what he says, usually? Climb them. That's the answer right there. Faith is not certainty. Faith is risking the relationship. Faith is having enough of risk tolerance to go up the mountain. It's not about intellect. It's about relationship. And she got that. Mountains move when you have enough faith to climb them. Faith is not an intellectual concept. It's about relationships. It's about saying to God, I trust you enough that I will follow you up the mountain. And you might be thinking, hey Kyle, I thought Jesus said to move the mountain, and now you're talking about climbing the mountain. Yeah, but here's the thing you don't understand. When you climb the mountain moves from in your way to in your rearview mirror. It moves from in front of you to behind you. It moves from being a menace in your path to being a memory about how God came through. It moves from being a barrier to a boast about God's power. It moves. And see, we don't get this because we think that God's all about saving us steps. He's not. He's trying to get you to close your exercise rings. If you read the Bible, you'll read story after story about person after person whose life was spent following God up and down the mountain. Lower. If you look at the New Testament, you'll find people like Paul, a guy who climbed literal mountains to talk about Jesus and share him with people who lived far away, who also faced metaphorical mountains, many obstacles in his path. If you look in the Old Testament, you'll find Moses, who climbed all kinds of mountains. It's actually this amazing scene with Moses in Exodus chapter 19, where God is on top of a mountain and he calls Moses up to talk to him. So Moses goes up and God says one thing to him and then sends him back down. And then God says, actually come back up again. And Moses goes up again, tells him another thing. He goes back down, actually come back up again. And he ends up going up and down this mountain 4 times. It's really clear in the story that God could have just said one time, Moses, come all the way up here, I'll tell you everything you need to know, and that's it. Could have been one trip. Well, why didn't God do that? Because God isn't trying to save us steps. He's trying to train us to climb mountains. That scene, not coincidentally, happens right before one of the most pivotal moments in the entire Bible, when God gives them the 10 Commandments, when he says, this is what my heart is like, this is what matters to me. Right before that, up the mountain and down the mountain. He puts mountains everywhere in the Bible. The capital city of the nation of Israel, Jerusalem, it's on a mountain. If you go there today, you'll hear people saying, I'm going up to Jerusalem. No matter if they're coming from the east or the west or the north or the south, it's because the only approach is to go up the mountain. The temple of God, the place where God dwelled before Jesus, was in the middle of that city on a mountain, Mount Moriah. The location's still there. It's in pretty much complete ruins. Interestingly, all that's left is a lower wall and some steps that go up. Do you know the only time the full divinity of Jesus was ever shown? On top of a mountain. Do you know that one day Jesus said he's going to come back? Do you know where he said he's going to come back? On top of a mountain. Well, why? What does it all mean? It means this. In the middle of your difficulty, in your doubt, God is saying, will you have enough faith in me to climb the mountain? And faith is needed here because you can't climb it on your own. It's an insurmountable object. Without him, you can only get there by God's power. But if you have enough faith to take that first step, God will meet you on the mountain. Psalm 121 verse 1 says, I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He says, I lift my eyes to the mountain. Why? Because that's where God is. I don't know what the mountain is that's looming over your life, but I know that God does. I think the question is, will you put your faith in him? Will you have enough faith to simply start to climb? You know, regardless of what that mountain is, I'd like to pray for you right now. I'd like to pray that you have the faith to overcome the doubt that says that God's not going to be with you, because he will. If you start to climb it, God will go with you. I'd like to pray for you right now. God, I pray for everybody watching, whatever the mountain is, that you would give us the faith to take the first step. You give us the faith to start to climb, to find the first foothold, to grab the first rock ledge, to start to follow you up the mountain. I pray for victory. I pray that those mountains would move from in front of us to behind us. Amen. Hey, if you're resonating with this message, I really want to encourage you right now to not tune out, but to stick with us. Right now, we're going to do a song. It's called worship. It's just saying words to God or expressing a heart towards him that says, God, I want to put my faith in you. Let's sing this together right now.
Hey, my name's Justin. You ever think about what makes Jesus different than any other king or God? Like most kings or most leaders or many gods, they want your stuff, right? Like I remember walking in India a year ago and seeing different shrines to different gods, and there was just coins all over those. There was money thrown at those. And the thing that makes Jesus different than any other king or leader that I know of, he doesn't want your stuff thrown at him. He's not satisfied with us just saying, well, here, you can have this and there will be distance between you and me because I gave you something that'll satisfy you. The thing that makes Jesus different is he says, I want all of you. I want you, not your stuff. There's even times throughout history where God has told his people, I don't want your sacrifices. I don't want your songs, which is convicting for me as one who sings a lot of songs. He says, I don't want your songs if it's not you. And if it doesn't show up in action, your daily life. And so we're going to give us a chance together to say, Lord, every day in my life should start like this. Good morning, Lord. How do I bless you? I want you to have me today. That's what we're going to sing. That's what we're going to give you a chance to say to God in conversation right now.
Better time than now to be wherever you want me, 'cause I know that you're working already. There ain't no better place than this to hear whatever you will say, 'cause I know that you're speaking. I'm ready. Oh, so what are you doing today, God? And how can I be a part? Well, what are you doing today, God? How can I bless your heart? Yeah, I just wanna bless your heart. I just wanna bless your heart. Every day I wake up, I just wanna give you anything to bless your heart. Anything to bless your heart. There ain't no better time than now to be wherever you want me, 'cause I know that you're working already. Oh, there ain't no better place than this to hear whatever you want to say, 'cause I know that you're speaking. I'm ready, I'm ready. What are you doing today, God? And how can I be a part? Oh, what are you doing today, God? And how can I bless your heart? I just wanna bless your heart. I just wanna bless your heart. Every day I wake up, I just wanna give you anything to bless your heart. And I just wanna bless your heart. I just wanna bless your heart. Every day I wake up, I just wanna give you anything to bless your heart. Oh, anything to bless your heart.
Let's just take this moment. You got nowhere else to go right now. Just take this moment and let's just listen. Let's ask God that question. How can I bless your heart today? Take a moment. Ask Him. Maybe say it out loud where you are. Lord, how can I bless your heart? I don't do that enough. Silence makes me uncomfortable these days, right? But if I started every day by going, Lord, how do I bless your heart? Even in this moment, what is it? What just sparked in your brain? To encourage someone? Great. To send a text right now to someone you just want to say, you want to build up. Hey, I just want to tell you what you mean to me. Great. A phone call. Or maybe Oh no, I need to get rid of that. Okay. Oh, I need to go this way. When we start with that question, how do I bless you? Then we get the chance to say, then you can have me, God. You can have my yes. And so right now we're going to hold that thing that sparked in your mind, sparked in your heart. Give him a yes. I will walk this way, Lord. I will walk with you. We'll put it to a melody.
At all times, through all things, and always I choose you. And I'll run or I'll wait, but always I bless your heart. At all times, through all things, and always I choose you. And I'll run or I'll wait, but always I bless your heart. At all times, through all things, and always I choose you. And I'll run or I'll wait, but always I bless. I just want to bless your heart, and I just want to bless your heart. Every day I wake up, I just want to give you anything to bless your heart. Yes, I just want to bless your heart. I just want to bless your heart. Every day I wake up, I just want to give you anything to bless your heart. Yes, I just want to bless your heart. Oh, I just want to bless your heart. Every day I wake up, I just want to give you anything to bless your heart. And I just want to bless your heart. I just want to bless your heart. Every day I wake up, I just want to give you anything to bless your heart. Oh, anything to bless your heart. Anything to bless your heart.
If today resonated with you, there's another part to this message. You can watch it right now by clicking right here. Also, make sure you subscribe. We'll see you next time.